Every Formula One championship begins with a central question. For example, 2024. After Red Bull won 21 out of 22 races in 2023, came with the inquiry, will they and Verstappen take them all this time? Every year, you can observe there is a central question. On another example, 1994, Ayrton Senna took the spot in his long-dreamed Williams. For the first time, without opponents, he thought of significance. Little, Prost, Marshall, all were out. Lifetime history always takes care of answering the question of each championship. And before we start the preseason, with the car launches already scheduled, I have outlined 5 major questions that hover over this season, and the cars on the track will start to provide answers. That's what we're going to talk about today on Splash and Go. Let's go! I started by saying that every year has a big question, and I come here already telling you that there will be indeed. Yes, it's true, because this year, in particular, holds many questions in key areas. And I have picked the 5 most important ones, because in fact, nobody really cares about, I don't know, what will become of Vickerby? What will be the fate of Alpine? And the first of them, Aston Martin has been making quite significant moves. 1, it has spared no expense since Papa Lawrence took over the team, building a new factory, recruiting people at great cost. And last year it made them hire, in this case, 2 major hires. Adrian Newey, who becomes the head of the technical area with the status of a partner, and Andy Cowell, who came to be CEO and will also be team principal. They are 2 brilliant minds of the highest caliber. And in fact, they are in my top 10 of the most sensational minds in the history of Formula One. This video was re-recorded and is coming soon. The factory is being newly installed. They already have a wind tunnel and a simulator in operation, and they are recruiting people in droves from other teams. In fact, the rumor mill in the European press, many people say they hire so many people that there are too many chiefs for too few subordinates. Besides Newey and Cowell, Enrico Cardilli came with the status of Ferrari's technical director. And it is responsible for one of the big questions because it invests heavily, new factory, has a top-tier driver, Fernando Alonso, whom we don't know at this stage of his career, what he can still deliver. And with all these investments and preparation maturing, the big question arises, and what about Aston Martin? Because in 2023, they had a short-lived success. They achieved several podiums at the beginning. Dan Fellows, who has already left, made a promising car. But they were, both in 2023 and 2024, overtaken by the competition, McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes. In the development race, they couldn't update the car satisfactorily. Alongside Alonso, the owner's son, Lawrence Stroll, who will race, we know, as long as he wants. But Daddy Lawrence is under pressure from the other partners because he is the leader of a consortium of investors, not the only one, who press him saying, the day we decide to really fight at the front and compete for a constructors' championship, this won't do. Being a one-car team. And they are right. We saw what happened in 2024 with Red Bull having Verstappen scoring well. Furthermore, another question within the question that remains about Aston Martin is, to what extent they will waste resources on a lost cause, investing in a concept that is already behind the others, nearing the end of a regulatory cycle, since in 2026, everything resets. Exactly 1 year from now, we will be talking on top of a blank slate. And it is on blank slates that Adrian Newey usually brainstorms. Did you like that one? Good things. So evidently, it remains to be seen how much resource will be allocated to the wind tunnel CFD and the investment itself. For 2025, how much will be allocated for 2026? Also remembering to add another question mark. Honda is coming. They will no longer have engines. Mercedes, which can be good, but it can also be bad. Because there are those who say that, once again, Mercedes will come with everything. And that the power units will make the difference, at least at the beginning of the next engine era. So, The first of the 5 questions that remains is, what about Aston Martin? Newey, Andy Cowell, Honda engine, Fernando Alonso, how to know? Speaking of Fernando Alonso at the very end of this topic, so as not to say I didn't mention the flowers, he himself vocalizes, 2026 for all intents and purposes I treat as being the last year of my career. Unless something happens, and this is a valid question when we have been hearing from reasonably solid sources that Aston Martin itself has already put on the table for Max Verstappen an offer of 1 billion reais for 5 years for him to be the team's driver. And being the team's driver, you must agree with me, it won't be a Verstappen plus Alonso team, as fun as that might be. This is a very interesting question, considering the year 2024 that Red Bull had exactly a year ago, 12 months, we were here dealing with the Hornergate, that sexual scandal involving the head of Red Bull, prompted by a complaint from a former employee. And I say it clearly, sexual scandal, because that was the nature of an article published by The Telegraph, and Horner did not sue the newspaper. Well, since then, a lot has happened. They lost last year's Constructors' Championship to McLaren, and in the first third of the year, that didn't seem possible at all. Newey left for Aston Martin. Jonathan Wheatley left and went to Sauber. At the end of this year, they will lose Honda and embark on an entirely new adventure with Ford Red Bull powertrain making their own engines. And one more thing, there is the real prospect of losing Verstappen to 2 very strong contenders. Mercedes on one side, campaigning hard, and Aston Martin, which would have already put that staggering offer, as I mentioned earlier, on the table, having to, like all the others, allocate resources. We will still focus on the 2025 car until the end to try to secure another championship for Verstappen. Or do we risk leaving him dissatisfied at a crucial time when he might be looking at options? And we think about the 26 car. These are very pressing doubts that must be occupying Horner's mind. Jos Verstappen, Max's father, made quite a stir last year, not responding to whether he would like to take the driver to other teams. And the question here is about Red Bull, because it's not appropriate to question Verstappen. Verstappen is currently the driver in the best form on the grid, so there's not much doubt about him. Where to sit, he will deliver performance. It's about knowing where he will sit. The engineering team lost brilliant minds. Newey is one of those who left. Dan Fellows also left. Rob Marshall went to McLaren, and several others. But they still have Pierre Waché and a number of other lesser-known individuals who can carry the load. But will this team have the maturity and experience for the crucial moment of a regulation change? Because it's in these situations that power sometimes quickly changes hands in Formula One. No car has hit the track at the time of recording and publishing this video. But what is known, and these are the words of none other than Newey, is that the problems with the RB20, last year's car, had started early in the development of the RB19. And Verstappen, while he kept winning, stayed quiet. But when the situation started to tighten and the rivals, McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes, began closing in, that's when he spoke up. And he started to complain. All of this contributed to a very challenging situation. And we know since the death of Dietrich Mateschitz, Red Bull has become a mess, an endless internal political struggle. To add to this, another factor, Leon Lawson. Max Verstappen has been a teammate killer since he joined Red Bull. Lawson is a rookie, he might even think. You know what? Will he want to leave next year? Let me do my thing and not cause trouble. On the other hand, he knows that doing his thing and not causing trouble involves getting as close as possible and, if possible, ahead of Verstappen. Is it easy? No, it's not easy, but sometimes it happens. The fact is, if a year ago you had told me that today, a year later, I would be here recording a video telling you that Red Bull lost the constructors and at a certain point saw McLaren rise in the Drivers' Championship with Lance Norris. Of course, it was more hype than anything else. Verstappen knew how to manage the championship. Saw Newey and several minds from the technical era leave, and now it's a big question mark. I would find it amusing, but there it is, history showing that the doubt is relevant. And Red Bull. McLaren went through a maturity test last year and barely passed. Because if it's true that they won the Constructors' Championship for the first time since 1998, it is true they also exposed their weaknesses, especially in managing the internal relationship between their drivers, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Norris has been with the team for much longer. Piastri finished his second full season in Formula One and with the team in 2024, and they didn't exactly manage the hierarchy that should exist regarding who has been there longer, who should win the championship, who should challenge Red Bull, etc. Oh, are you defending Norris? Are you protecting Piastri? Do you not like one? Do you not like the other? No, the team lacked pragmatism. And in Monza, they reached the first chicane of the Roja in first and second, came out in first and third, and Leclerc took it. But the failures are not just McLaren's. Lando Norris, for example, if he really wants to face Max Verstappen, will have to step up his game. It's the same for Oscar. Piastri, up until now, he has enjoyed the grace, the benefit, the waiting time of being a rookie. But now there's no more of that excuse. 2 full seasons, he's already won major prizes, already achieved pole position. He has to enter 2025, making a mark straight away. Winning races, pole position, showing what he's made of. But the same applies to Lando Norris. He needs to show that he has matured, that he understood last year's lessons, and that he won't make the same mistakes. In other words, 2 drivers at the end of their patience. What patience? The patience that the public and the team itself can have with them. Norris could leave 2025 with the label of almost, and Piastri might lose patience and decide to sing in another parish while he hasn't yet reached the peak of his graph. Because everyone, if they get there and don't convince, tends to fall. Andrea Stella, the head of the team that is also leading a team for the first time, winning for the first time, will also have to step up and show that he is on the same level as a Toto, Wolff, Christian Horner, and why not say Flavio Briatore? Figures who know how to be ruthless when necessary. Briatore. Among those, if I owned a team and needed someone to manage it, he would be the one I'd choose. But there's one more issue regarding McLaren on the technical side. Because last year, despite winning the Constructors' Championship, they started poorly and only got into the rhythm of things after Imola and Miami. Did it work out? Did they win? Yes, that's a fact. But a team that wants to compete for the championship on equal terms, with organizations like Red Bull itself, Ferrari and Mercedes, which hasn't forgotten how to win, needs to start the year already, playing their game. And if it's true that McLaren has in abundance something that, for example, Aston Martin lacks, the ability to grow throughout the year, it's also true that in 2022, 2023, 2024, they started off poorly and improved as the year went on. They only react in the middle of the year and improve those who didn't start off so well. Therefore, and taking into consideration that for them as well, the challenge of 2026 is there. The question remains, even as Constructors' Champion McLaren, we would necessarily go through this questioning here. And what about Bortoleto, which can be transmuted in other countries to Italy and Aston in France, Hadjar and so on. Since the others have a bit more experience, what about Bortoleto? I already made a video talking about the what now. As soon as it was formalized at Sauber, and a lot needs to be put into perspective here, the first and fundamental one is the current situation of Sauber, which in a year will become Audi. Audi's position regarding this team is reasonably ambiguous, because it accelerated the acquisition process while simultaneously starting to distance itself from the project. What do you mean? I'll explain. Audi, like several major manufacturers, is facing a drop in sales in Asia, especially in China, by about 25% to 30%. And this hurts the financial results. When this kind of thing happens, the first reaction of shareholder boards is to cut what they consider superfluous. And colorful cars racing in circles to get nowhere are always seen as superfluous. That's why I always emphasize that one of the reasons for Formula One's existence is to develop technology, because this helps justify the insanity of the spending. So then, Audi accelerated the acquisition process, but faced with poor financial results, transferred the shares to an investment fund from Qatar, which is a partner at the top of the Volkswagen Group, owner of everything. Why do this? Precisely to be able to take more hits in board meetings and have an answer? Look, I'm not even spending that much, since now the guy from Qatar is backing it. Yes, this is a simplification of what is actually happening, but it captures the essence. Matias Binotto has a great mission ahead, and he is the right person for it. To develop a power unit on par with competitors of Mercedes caliber. For a manufacturer with a vast history of victories in motorsport, it's true. Wherever it went, Audi won in endurance, Formula E, and so on. But Formula One, as we know, is a complex beast. And throughout history, we've seen great brands flounder. Take the most recent, perhaps most severe example of Toyota between 2002 and 2009. Sauber was the worst team last year. And for them, the challenge also looms what to do in 2025, considering that 2026 is coming. And for them, 2026 will be as complicated as it will be for Red Bull. Because both are the ones debuting new engines. Oh, but what about Cadillac? Aren't they in this too? Cadillac will use Ferrari engines, and it's a matter for 2026. They are not racing this year. The Brazilian fans will need to have a lot of patience, a lot of maturity to understand that it is likely, it is expected, it is part of the game. If the team, for example, gives much more attention to Hülkenberg, a guy with 15 years in Formula One, whose feedback should be taken into consideration. Bortoleto has support, has speed, seems to have a lot of maturity, and his career management even insisted on a 2-year contract because, it would be a ghost train to expect something to happen in just one season, given this whole scenario where the chances of things not going right in the first year are greater than smaller. Oh, but are you already jinxing the guy? No, I'm being harshly realistic. It was the worst team last year. They are developing a power unit for next year. It doesn't make sense to think they will waste all the wind tunnel time and resources on a project that is nearing its end. Since, as I keep insisting here, this regulation cycle ends and a new one begins in 2026. The goal is clear. Stay as close as possible to Hülkenberg. If possible, ahead. And hope for a crazy race, a red flag, a safety car, and score points when possible. If Joe managed it, Bortoleto, who is much better, can too. The last question is obvious. What will Lewis Hamilton do at Ferrari? I have a hunch. I think that considering how Ferrari finished last year, challenging McLaren in the constructors' battle, Hamilton might have a unique opportunity in 2025 to win the championship right away if he knows beforehand how to handle Leclerc, who is very fast. Are you saying it's going to happen? No way. I don't make that kind of prediction. I see myself as an analyst, not as someone who makes guesses or fabricates about reality. But think with me, Ferrari's momentum at the end of last year was favorable. They were causing trouble in the fight at the front. So as long as they haven't fallen too far back, in the 2025 car with Hamilton coming, who, according to reports, including an article from Gazzetta dello Sport, with sources inside Ferrari saying already felt very comfortable. With the car, it can, indeed, ignite the spark that's missing, and he can rally the team around him for Formula One, for Ferrari, and also for the channel here, because I make a living telling stories. It would be sensational. But as I said, a little over a year ago, it was February 1st, 2024, when he was announced. If it works out, it will be a great story. If it doesn't, it will be too. There are many questions about Hamilton. Does he still have the necessary hunger? Does he still have the speed? At a certain point last year, he himself said no. Will he be able to join a team completely different from the one he was used to, famous for having a political environment more like a minefield or a swamp, and manage to get the best out of each of those Italians, the best they have to offer? All this while having to handle a teammate who, I insist, in pure speed is possibly the best on the current grid. It's an excellent question, and the elements for an epic of drama, comedy, or triumph are there. I think if Lewis Hamilton had to give an inaugural speech, he would use the words of Fernando Collor during the history of the confiscation to combat inflation in 1990. I have a rifle with only one bullet. Whether it will work or not, we don't know, but it reminds me of the author who said that history repeats itself, first as tragedy, then as farce. Anyway, these are 5 big questions hovering over the 2025 season. And in a year, we will have the answers. And we can react to ourselves in the future looking and saying, wow, what madness. Alonso became champion with Aston Martin from Newey. Why not? If you want to answer the 5 questions, let's go. I remember them by heart. And Aston Martin, and Red Bull, and McLaren, and Bortoleto, and Hamilton, from 1 to 5, put it here in the comment box. Just don't fight with your peers. This was then another episode of Splash and Go on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like, it's free, it costs nothing, and it helps this channel a lot. Give us a hug, give us your support, and also leave us your hype, this new YouTube tool, to show them that you like our videos, that you like our channel, and appreciate this work. Thus, it continues to showcase the content across the internet, and we keep growing. We are almost at 200,000 subscribers. This will be a great year with a lot of content, so you won't miss anything. We have Telegram channels, WhatsApp, and Centro, and I can receive an automatic message as soon as I publish each of our videos, shorts, news, etc. We also have content all the time on our social networks, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and TikTok, in addition to my personal account, Rodrigo_Splash and Go, with behind-the-scenes footage where I'm going to produce material, etc. All right, so thanks all, and a big hug.